Uncensored.
It's time, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the podcast that is all about intellectually immature nonsense.
Are a very particular set of skills.
And by God, this is the BS.
Uncensored.
All right, there it is. What is this? Episode
10.
10
Double digits.
of the BS Uncensored. Thanks for being here. My name's Jason Bailey. There's Nikki D. There is Nelson. Our guest this week. I'm looking at him right now. I got to tell you, he's about 50 years younger than I thought he was going to be. Didn't see this one coming, Max. Did not see this one coming. But our guest, Max Bennett, he's the co-founder and CEO of, it's Albi, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Albi, yep.
Yeah. But I mean, you've done, you're like a computer genius guy. You're the guy that my generation missed out on, right? You're how old? Probably what, 31, 32?
33.
33.
Oh, I wouldn't have even guessed him in his 30s.
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close.
Is that good? Is it good that I look so youthful?
Yeah, a lot
Right.
of lotions or something.
We're jealous. That's what it is. I mean, we're
Lotion.
like, no, here's the God's honest truth. And I mean, we're going to talk about a brief history of intelligence, evolution, AI, and the 5 breakthroughs that made our brains. And this is on sale. It's already on sale, actually. And this is the stuff that we hear about all the time and talk about, this AI stuff. And I swear to God, and I usually do good prep for guests, and I usually look at the pictures and I pull them up. But I thought you'd look like the captain of the Titanic or something, you know, like thinking that you're this old professor from Ithaca College or something like that, you know?
Right.
But no, we're, my Generation X. I grew up a jock. My mom always told me, be careful. The smart guys, they're going to eventually take over the world and steal your girlfriend and make all the money. And that's what you do.
Yeah, give his girlfriend back, Max.
Give me my girlfriend back, Max.
I'm a married man.
You're a married guy.
Okay.
So before we, now I'm curious more about you than just the AI stuff. So first, let me start with you. Like, as a young guy, I mean, this is the AI technology is fairly new, at least mainstream new. So how do you know so damn much about it?
Yeah, I think, AI has been going on for 70 years, but it's been taking off a lot over the last 2 decades. And I think when there's a lot of new technologies emerging, often it's, a lot of, I don't want to say like the biggest experts in AI are, I would say, like the Jeffrey Hintons and the Richard Suttons of the world who have been doing this for decades. That said, I've been on the front lines of commercializing these systems. So Bluecore, which is a company I co-founded, I was the chief product officer of, 25% of the top retailers in the world use Bluecore to apply AI to their marketing systems. And so I think when you're on the forefront of applying these outside of the lab, but in real practical use cases, you learn a lot about their limitations, as well as what they're capable of. So yeah, I've been on the front lines of this. I think it's a really fascinating space. There's lots of possible great outcomes that could occur. There's also some outcomes that might not be as great that we need to think about.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an exciting time to be alive.
Okay, so we hear these stories all the time about, somebody in the 30s, 20s even, that co-found these startups like you were just talking about. And I'm guessing you sold it and now you're a gazillionaire and you move on with your life. But how does it start? Like where does the conversation start where this company is built? It's not easy to build a company. I've tried. I've done it. It's very difficult.
It is very painful to start companies. I don't know why we do it. Yeah, I mean, I think starting a company is something that's sorry, let me put this on. Starting a company is something that you really can't plan in advance. So when we first started Bluecore, I did it with 2 friends of mine, my 2 co-founders. We didn't even think about it as an AI company, actually. We originally thought about it as a automation company. So we were automating data collection and then some very basic rules-based predictions as to what customers would want, and then we would just trigger marketing communications. And it was only after we were acquiring all of this incredible amounts of data that we had the idea of we could actually build AI systems on top of this and create systems that would predict what people wanted outside of these rules-based approaches we were doing. So we started applying all of the sort of frontier technology and machine learning. And that's when we started realizing that the abilities that it had to predict things were just far beyond any technique that was created before. So we stumbled into it. I think a lot of startup journeys are not like, we didn't plan on it becoming that big. When we started out, we were like, man, if this became a company with 30 people, I would be euphoric, right? And then 10 years later, there's 400 people, and we're just like, how did it end up here?
That's crazy. You're even having those conversations with your. I mean, does anybody else in this room feel really lazy right now?
Yeah.
I just feel like I might not have any really smart buddies like I thought I did.
Yeah, I know when I'm around my friends, the last thing we're talking about is, you know what? We can make this better.
Right.
You know, how do we take this to the next level?
Well, but even if you can dream up an idea, to have the follow through to like really go and do it, that's even a next level beyond that.
Yeah. So you got from there to the AI technology, and we, you know, as for the most part, dum-dums, at least I'd say I am. You know, you kind of know what it is, and you hear the stuff that it can do. You kind of wrap your head around it's going to be the end all be all of the world, you know, because it's going to take over. And you see all these stories every day, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's why Max Bennett's on, so he can explain to us all that stuff. Why don't you start like talking to us like we're 5, okay, and explain what AI is as simplistically as you possibly can, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So I think the first thing to realize is the word AI is just, or 2 words AI, the term is just a term. And if you put even the greatest experts of AI on this podcast and ask them to define it, you're going to get very different definitions. So the first thing to realize is there is no single definition that is agreed upon as to what it is. The most anchored definition for AI is a non-biological entity that can do what humans do. If you really press people on what they mean when they say we're trying to create artificial intelligence, what they really mean is we're trying to recapitulate human-like abilities in a non-human entity. And that is what brings in the question of the brain, because what we're actually trying to do is say, hey, can we create some of the abilities that brains can do in machines? And this has been something we've been trying to do for 70 years. You know, there was a famous meeting in the 1950s where the term artificial intelligence was coined. And a lot of the people that came out of that, it was a Dartmouth meeting, predicted that in 20 years, we would have a machine that could do anything a human could do.
Wow.
And it didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is something called Moravec's paradox, which was, he was I think a Carnegie Mellon roboticist that came up with this term in the 80s. And Moravec's paradox is the things that are really hard for humans to do actually turned out to be really easy for machines, like doing math. We have a $2 calculator that can do math better than a human. And the things that are really easy for humans, like imagination, common sense, fine motor skills, thinking about the minds of others and emotions and empathy, are astronomically difficult for machines. And that's Moravec's paradox, which is like, wait, the things that we thought would be really hard, that we really initially treasure about being a human, which is our logic and all of that, it's actually really easy to put into a computer chip. But these things that are so sort of subconscious for us, when we're talking to each other, we're always inferring what we mean by what we say. It's very easy for us to plan our routes during our day. It's easy for us to learn how to drive. We've struggled to create that in machines. So that's sort of the high level, like what AI is, the current challenges. One thing in terms of the breakthroughs that are emerging in AI, there's been a schism in the AI world over the last 70 years where one side clearly won. The schism was, should we encode knowledge directly as a program? In other words, this is what's called expert systems. Should we just program what they do, effectively software? Or should we create like these webs of neurons, a neural network, where we let the system learn on its own? And previously people thought there's no way this web of neurons is going to be able to learn to do anything. And what's proven true over the last 2 decades is if you give it more and more data and you keep showing it the right answers, eventually it starts getting capable of doing crazy things. And so that's why we now have what's called convolutional neural networks that can predict images, classify images really well. Now we have language models that can write language. These things only saw astronomical amounts of data. And then they're just learning from them, which is partially what the brain does, but it's still missing things that the brain does, which I'm happy to go into.
Well, yeah, dude, I'm listening. I'm like, this is the most I've learned about this since I first, see it in the news or read. Are you going to be on video or no?
No, it won't work.
Oh, it won't work.
Something's
Okay.
not plugged up or something.
She's on the video that matters. So, Max, like, I think a lot of people have this thing where they hear AI and they think whatever, Terminator, Skynet. They think of an actual robot that's getting up and it's doing tasks. But AI is as simple as swipe to text, which has been on Android for 20 years, correct?
Yes, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So should people fear AI? Like, people are afraid of it. They think it's going to take over the world. Like, are we being silly to fear that, or are we in our right minds?
You're in your right minds. I think that the Skynet scenario is, although it's not a zero probability, is a distraction from the much more practical challenges that we're going to run into. I think there are two big practical challenges that we should think about more deeply. The first is the more decisions we hand to AI systems, the more we really want to understand when those systems make mistakes. So a very simple example is, if we enable AI to make hiring decisions, do we feel good about the bias that's present in those systems? Because if they're clearly showing up to be more biased than a human is, that could be really catastrophic. If we're going to hand over driving to AI systems, are we okay with the choices it makes in impossible decisions when it has to crash into one group of people or another? Do we like the moral choices that it makes in those situations? So one is like, the more decisions we hand over, we need to make sure we feel good about the ways it goes wrong. And as a quick side note on that, we've been building society around the flaws in human brains for 1,000 years. For example, we know human brains are imperfect, but we have rules and regulations. For example, you can't fly a plane if you're on drugs or you haven't slept for 24 hours. Why? Because we know human brains degrade into those two circumstances. So we've done a lot to understand, okay, here's where brains do well and here's where brains don't, and let's try and maximize the outcomes here and put guardrails. We don't really understand why AI systems make mistakes yet, and that creates a problem because it's hard to create guardrails around it. So one is we have to struggle with these sort of practical realities. The other practical problem is a technological one where, we've been displacing jobs for, hundreds of years, at least since the Industrial Revolution. That's been really accelerated. But it's possible this is going to be a more rapid disruption than any that's come before. And that begs big questions around labor disruption. What happens when huge swaths of jobs are just replaced with AI? What's the human cost of that? Does that create inequality issues where people who own the companies and the data and the algorithms, are extracting huge amounts of the economic gain, and then the rest of people garner no benefit? So I think that's a really important thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a more emotional part, which I think a lot about, which is not discussed as much, which is, most models of humans, at least in Western society, we think about us as consumers. So if I can give you more cheaper stuff, then I've made your life better. But we're also producers. I mean, we like being useful. At least a lot of us do. We want to do things that make us feel like we matter. And so when AI just comes around and just says, yeah, you're an artist, but like, we don't need you anymore. Or like, yeah, you're a writer, but like, we don't need human writers anymore. I think there's an unmeasured human cost to that when we just don't use humans for a lot of things anymore. And I'm not sure the solution to that, but that's another practical problem I think we need to think about.
One of my biggest issues with this is the being held accountable. If you are allowing AI to hire people, like the example you gave, or fly a plane or drive a car or any of these things, and something goes wrong, and something will go wrong, who do you hold accountable for it? And, with human beings, there's accountability, and we learn from our flaws and our failures. You cannot achieve success unless you have failure. You should fail more than you succeed, so you appreciate it. I mean, that's the human spirit, the human nature. With this, that's not going to be the case. If it fails, there's finger pointing, no one to blame, and it just happened, and we accept possible loss of life, or whatever the case may be. And then with the job thing, the other thing that you were talking about, Max, is, it's going to be a drastic change in the job force. I mean, we're seeing it drastically happen where a lot of these restaurants you go, there's nobody there. There's maybe one person there that heads that, so where's the income going to come from? I've always thought that in this case, and I know it's not all about robots. It's not just robots, like iRobot or something like that. But if you're going to replace human beings that with AI, then maybe give stake in whatever company to said employees. So, okay, well then it's almost like they own the robot. They own the AI. They own that technology. They're going to work for me. I'm going to put money in, but I'm really not going to do shit. And they're going to do whatever they want to do. You know what I mean? So because there's not going to be any jobs left. There's not going to be anything for us to do. Literally nothing. Our job, radio will be done in the next 10 years because of AI. I'm certain of it. It is going to be done. They're already, radio stations now across the country are, the one in particular thought it was clever to have it on, haha, funny. Fuck you, man. Like, that's horrible. You put that chick on the air, that's just the start of what's going to happen. Because radio companies are not going to want to pay us, and we're thank God I'm 48. I'm almost, to the point of being washed up, but it scares the living daylights out of me. And I don't know if it is because I'm 48. You seem very excited about it, Max, but you probably own all the AI in the world too. I don't know.
I feel the same fears. No, I think you're absolutely right. Like, for example, I love writing. I get a lot of joy from writing, and I do.
As do I.
There is this feeling of like, will anyone write anymore? Is this one of the last books that will be written? And I share in that. Yeah. I do think we're going to need a new deal for this type of world. I mean, there's a debate, and I don't know the right answer. One side says we've been doing this for hundreds of years. Who would have thought, for example, that one of the most lucrative jobs today was going to be computer programming? Right. I mean, computer programming did not exist in the 1950s. I mean, there was a few people that were maybe writing Fortran statements, but like that wasn't a real job. And computers displaced a ridiculous number of jobs. And then all of a sudden it created all of these computer programmers. So there's one side that makes this type of argument, and maybe they're right, but eventually we're going to get to the point, and maybe now is the time when we're not going to create new jobs. It's just going to be AI systems doing all of that. And I think the fear, which I think is legitimate, is we're entering a world where there's not going to be new job creation. It's just going to be replacement. And I think if that's true, we're going to need a new deal here where we're going to have to consider systems like you're describing, where there's shared equity ownership. One proposal that's being floated is UBI, Universal Basic Income, where we just need to tax systems more, and then we just give all citizens just a flat income per year.
Wow.
But I do think in our lifetimes, we're going to be needing to consider these types of things, because in the absence of it, inequality might just get too high.
Yeah. And so on Tuesday nights here in Sacramento, I go to this class with the FBI here. Right. And last night, I was at this class, and it really kind of shed some light. This will make sense here in a second. Just follow me. But one of the agents got up and spoke about, like sextortion with the cyber and the kids, and kind of how it started. And I mean, we're talking about these agents that are hands-on, that are traveling to Tunisia and all these different places to find the bad guys and stop this stuff. But the extortion aspect of it, and how it started, and the Nigerian prince was a thing, and then they realized, well, that it's run its course, so let's do this and let's do this, and then they're like, well, these kids are too young, let's go to somebody older who has money, because these kids are like, screw you, I ain't got $300. You're going to have to share the pick with somebody. I just don't have it. And he was walking us through this. And this guy was, kind of split the difference between you and I as far as age. So he explained it. He goes, as the older you get, the more you fear what you did not grow up with. But our kids, and he talked about his 3 kids, grew up with social media. And it's just a part of their daily lives. iPads. You see 6-year-olds going through iPhones, and they're learning how to do it on their own. It's not taught like I was taught, or even maybe UMax was taught. And he explained it in a really interesting way of not fearing the unknown just because you're not familiar. Because if you go back to when you were a kid, or I was a kid, or Nikki or Nelson or whomever, and you look at things that were new to your parents, it's the same exact thing of history repeating itself, as it always will. So that brings me back to AI and going, well, maybe we're overreacting just because we don't know. It's the evolution. It's what's next. It has to happen in order for us to survive, because it's going to happen either way, one way or another.
I think there's definitely truth to that. I would say I wouldn't call myself a techno optimist, but I'm more on the optimistic side than not. Like, for example, how many people out there don't learn well in a classroom? So many. I know so many unbelievably smart people that just didn't do well in classrooms because they just don't learn at the pace. And the problem with the classroom is you're speaking to a group of 15 or 40 kids, and you have to have one message for all of them. So these new large language models offer an incredible opportunity for personalized learning. I mean, I would be very excited for my children to have their own personalized teacher that can work at their own pace, that they can ask questions to, that's infinitely patient, that never makes them feel insecure about not understanding something. So I think it's not all bad. There's some amazing things that could come from this. But at the same time, the argument that it always worked in the past and hence it'll work in the future is also a little bit nefarious. There's Nick Bostrom, who's a famous philosopher who wrote Superintelligence, has something called the vulnerable world hypothesis, which is, suppose there's this urn. This is his thought experiment. So this is an urn, and the urn has a bunch of balls in it, and each ball represents technology, right? So what we're doing is we just keep taking technology out of the ball, out of the urn. And once we open the Pandora's box, once we get it, we can't undo it. And the vulnerable world hypothesis is there at least one ball in this urn that when you pull it out, the world ends? All that has to be the case is there's one ball in that urn. And then we should be concerned and thoughtful about what we're doing. And if you believe that, if you can make the argument there's at least one technology that could be created that would be catastrophic, then you'll see the statement that always worked in the past, it'll be fine in the future. That will always stay true until the one moment that it's not. So I think it will probably be fine, but I think we shouldn't be too quick to silence concerned voices who are making sure that we're doing things safely.
Well, no, and it's man-made, and so there's a flaw that's involved.
Exactly.
Because no one's perfect, and we've never made someone perfect. You go to the beginning of the social media era, right? And it was, cool. I can listen to music. Tom's my friend. This is neat. I can talk to people. God, I haven't seen them in forever. What's this Facebook thing? Oh, this is even better. Oh, I can find somebody. Oh, yeah, she's going to go out with me. And then we see what social media turned into. Now, there's a lot of pros, don't get me wrong, but it's also taken people's lives with cyberbullying. It's gotten, kids kidnapped. I mean, there's a lot of horrible things that go along with. And so we backtrack as human beings. We backtrack and try to fix what we either ignored the future of or we didn't see coming. So the same thing with this. If this is man-made, which it is, that's what I'm afraid of, is something as powerful as AI that we won't be able to go back because the damage will already be done because it's that powerful.
Yep. And I think we need to think about business models here too, where, capitalism is in an interesting phase now where, I would say for most of the Industrial Revolution, capitalism did largely good things because the best way to make money would be to create an invention that makes people better off enough that they want to buy it. And the inventions that we started with were better transportation, better access to energy, all of these types of things. But in a certain strata of society, we already have really cheap access to food. We have cheap access to all of these things. The best way to make money is actually to give you a disease and sell you a cure. And that's what Facebook does in a lot of ways, which is I make you insecure and I make you addicted to this thing. And I didn't make you do it. You're of your own volition logging into Instagram. So you can't blame me. I didn't, you know what I mean? But what I actually did is I got you addicted to something. And so we have to ask when we're inventing these things, are we actually creating technologies that truly lead to more human fulfillment? Or are we tricking ourselves because we're manipulating people into wanting things that don't actually make them better? And I think that used to be a minor portion of our economy. But I think over time, the portion of the economy, which is, give you a disease, sell you a cure type tools, is growing. And that begs a big problem for unregulated capitalism because the market will incentivize those types of things unless we realize Facebook's not actually making people's lives better. And so we need to rethink it.
Yeah,
I hope AI Yeah, go ahead.
Are we on our way to like a Wall-E type situation, or is the world more open to the fact that there's going to be like a bubble that bursts and the pendulum will swing the other way as AI takes over the technology and makes our lives easier? Will there be this shedding of technologies and things, maybe like hearkening back to days when you actually connected with humans?
I hope so. Yeah, I think I think that would be wonderful if, I mean, not all solutions in the life can be solved with technology. I think this is also like maybe obvious to you, but in the world that I'm from in technology, like sometimes people seem to forget that. They think all problems in the world are like technological problems, which is just not true. Belongingness, feeling connected, feeling like you matter. We don't need apps to solve this. These are cultural things. These are how do you help foster community? The feeling of self-determination requires people to work hard at things. We don't want everything to be easy. Humans like to work hard and achieve things and get better at skills that are hard. So yeah, I think it's possible we return to some of those principles, and I think that would be great.
Have you seen that commercial with Allen Iverson?
I haven't.
About the AI. They're like, it's AI, and he's over at the grill, and you know, and I always think, I'm like, God, I mean, I hope he trademarked that. If he trademarked AI, he's going to make tons of cash.
So much money.
What are the military ramifications for this? You know, so how do you use this technology? You know, because everybody's going to have it, right? So how do you have it better than the bad guys?
Yeah, that's a really, I mean, I don't consider myself like a expert in military strategy. I do. One thing that is happening though, that is interesting is a lot of the voices that are concerned about deploying these AI systems are being silenced with the military argument, which is, well, we have no choice but to allow these systems to be developed as fast as possible, because if we don't, enemies and dangerous people will do the same. And there might be some truth to that, but I think in some ways that's a double fake, which is we can develop these things in safe ways without deploying them globally or whatever. So I think there's some of that is fear mongering to try and prevent us from slowing down AI development, because it's just trying to make us afraid of someone else getting ahead. That said, there's a lot of ways in which the defense world is thinking about AI. One is, you know, right now, if you think about, and I'm not an expert in this at all, but if you think about how the CIA and FBI thinks about information, they have these huge secret internal databases where they're looking through information.
Yes, we do.
And the speed at which they can access that information really determines a lot of things. And so I do know for a fact that they are working on, or maybe already internally deployed, using ChatGPT-like technology to enable agents to access information as fast as possible, because now it can query all these internal databases and give information at the end of their fingertips. And so that type of AI deployment is really interesting. Facial recognition technology is something China's deployed. Some people would argue too far. It's a little privacy violating, but now, any camera in the world, we can detect. If you pass any camera in the world, we have the technology to know exactly where you are. Wow. So that's another piece of technology. Hacking into systems. I mean, GPT-4 is, an incredible coder. So that means that you could have a sort of splinter cell group that doesn't have access to the top engineers in the world, but if they have access to GPT-4, they can do a lot of software programming. And so that also begs a security risk. So I think that across the board, there's going to be a lot of different ways in which it's applied. And yeah, we need to be thoughtful about defense, because every country in the world is looking at it.
But what's scary, going back to the FBI, I know. But what the FBI does is it gathers information. That's all they do. That they are an information gathering organization. Again, stuff that I've learned in class. When you see on television that they go and they're going into the houses and stuff like that's not them. That's not what they do. They're not SWAT. They're not guns drawn. It's nothing like you see on TV. They are a fact-finding organization. So when you rely on something like AI and all the other stuff that goes along with it, what happens when something does go wrong and it gives you false information? You're not going to have that human connection to be able to kind of smell it out. Like, there was an agent last night in class, counterintelligence. I mean, this guy is just got a feel for it. He got a vibe. There's that. I always say that we use so little of our brain. I think we're all superheroes if we can use all of our brain. We'd be able to do amazing things. I mean, I just don't think we're even a touch of what we're able to do as human beings. But there is some people that have the intuition more than others. That's a thing. AI doesn't have that. You're asking it black and white questions. What if it gives you the wrong answer? You arrest the wrong guy or you go to the wrong place and God forbid knows what happens because it screwed up. That sucks. Nobody to blame afterwards.
Yep.
So
You're right. Max, what's the likelihood that we're living in a simulation already?
I believe it.
It's funny when me and my friend, sometimes we talk about like, if there is a crazy theory you believe in, what would it be? And I think mine is that we are living in a simulation.
Yeah, I see.
I will give you some of my evidence. I think not that there's of course proof,
right,
but I think some of my favorite things that are suggestive of it is, let's think about two very odd properties of physics. Quantum mechanics, which is we have discovered that particles do not have the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Particles do not have a singular location in space or a singular momentum until they're observed.
Mm-hmm.
That makes really no sense. Why would physics be designed such that the conscious observer, has an impact on the physics of it? But it makes perfect sense if you think about us as being in a rendered simulation, because we already do this in video games, something called generative design, where as it reduces computational cost if we don't have to render reality when we're not observing it.
Mm-hmm.
So in a video game, you haven't rendered the part of the map until you go to it. So it would make sense if we're in a simulation to not render the specifics of particles until a conscious entity is interacting with it. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you were designing a simulation at the scale of the universe or Earth, it would be really expensive to compute causal relationships between things far away, right? Because every particle would be affected by every other particle. That would be a combinatorial explosion. One solution to this would be to make causality local. And one way you could do that is make it so that it's impossible for causal relationships to affect things directly far away from it until a certain amount of time has passed. And from that, you would get special relativity, which is things cannot affect each other faster than the speed of light. There are causal cones, which is I literally cannot instantaneously affect something happening in Sacramento right now. It takes the speed of light to get there.
Right.
So I didn't invent these two things. There are other people who talk about it, but these two properties of physics, which make kind of no sense logically, make perfect sense if you hold the premise that we're in a simulation. So
God, that's so crazy.
There's a little pitch for simulation theory.
Almost word for word is what Nikki D texted me last week.
Yeah. Well, have you also
really? All right.
No.
Well, no, not at all. No. Not even close.
Not
I'm
even,
so lost right now.
No.
Have you also seen that, like, because we can build a simulation, it already says we're probably in one? I.e., like, have you seen that they have made so this is a little nerdy, but inside of Minecraft, they have figured out how to build a computer that will run Minecraft. So they made a computer inside the game, and then they programmed the game to run on the stuff that's inside the game.
Wow. That's
watch the YouTube video. It is mind blowing.
I knew Max would know what I was talking about.
That's that make me shut off everything in my house.
Yeah,
I feel like get out of here.
I just want my Matrix powers, dude. If this is a simulation, let me unlock some cheat codes.
Yeah,
that's not.
Why can't we be Neo?
Thank you.
Where did you go to school? Like, what did you graduate with?
I graduated with a degree in economics and mathematics from Washington University in St. Louis.
Like, did you wear the thing around your neck and stuff? You're really smart.
He's so smart.
So
my
smart.
God. Did you meet your wife at college?
No, I met her 7 years ago through a friend I went to college with.
Oh. AI, actually.
Yeah, AI.
Introduced him.
What should I say to this girl?
She's an AI.
Yeah, she's an AI.
She's not real.
I met her 7 years ago through a friend.
Is your wife like as smart as you are? And can you talk to her about this stuff?
She is a very, very smart person, in many ways smarter than me. And yeah, we talk about these things.
It's a great answer.
From time to time. She gets a little bored. If I talk about it for too much. So we don't only talk about this.
No, I think it's great, man. Like I'm in all of you. Like you're my new favorite superhero. Like I think this is such a cool thing because I'm learning so much. I like to learn things, and you're just a plethora of information. This is great. But it's like that kind of relationship. Like those, my wife and I, she's not the smartest woman, right?
Don't
But
say that.
she's very nice and she's very sweet and very pretty. You
She
know?
doesn't listen to the podcast, so he's safe.
But she knows I didn't marry her for her brains, and I'm the smart one in the house, and she knows that.
Oh my God.
But she's not keeping up with daily events, so I can't talk to her about those types of things. Max has got a nice wife, and he's able to talk to her about physics and computers and games and stuff like
I
that.
don't doubt his wife is not smart. I'm sure she is, but I guarantee you she doesn't know half of the words I've heard him say today because I have no idea what they mean.
What are you talking
know
about?
she does.
That's what I just said. She's smarter than him.
I'm telling you, she talks to him and she smiles and nods, and sometimes she does not know what he's
Why are
talking
you
about.
saying Max's wife is not smart?
I'm
That's
not
rude.
saying
Don't
she's
put
not
words in her
smart.
mouth.
That is not what I
Did you
said.
not just
I
hear
am
that?
just saying.
No, I hear what she is saying.
He is extremely
I can't wait
smart.
to send this podcast to her.
Yeah.
She's probably like the president of like 5 companies right now.
Yeah,
She's
right.
like,
Now I'm just trying to avoid getting in trouble. That's why I'm just saying that.
You've already said the right things. Smarter than you.
Hey,
Very wonderful.
Before we let you go, and we can cut this out of the podcast, but can we reach out to you for our radio show in Sacramento if this comes up and get you?
Of course.
Like, can I give you
Anytime.
my email address and you just shoot me your how to get a hold of you, however you feel comfortable. I'll give
Totally,
it out.
yeah.
Oh, okay, that's fine. It's I am Jason Bailey at Gmail. I am AMJASON.
Yep.
B as in boy, AILEY. I would love to stay in
Yep.
contact with you. You're just a fascinating, great dude, man. And there's this stuff that comes up all
I
the
appreciate
time.
that.
And Nelson is actually really smart when it comes to this stuff, but it would be
Yeah.
great to have you on as well.
Oh yeah,
So-
I could talk to you. I wouldn't be in your league, but I could talk to you about this shit for hours, man. It's just very fascinating. Can
You got
I?
it. I'll shoot you an email right now.
Yeah, can I send you my Venmo in case you have too much money laying around? In the future. It's real easy. That's
We are
just
gonna
Nelson.
need UBI. I support universal basic income, so let's do it. Let's start.
A brief history of intelligence, evolution, AI, and the 5 breakthroughs that made our brains, which is the book. You're gonna make this into like a movie or a docuseries or something like that?
It would be cool. Yeah, I don't know. No one from Netflix or anything's reached out yet, but it would be cool to make it into a docuseries.
Well, have you screwed over any of your buddies with any of this founding stuff? Because they like a juicy story so that they can cast the right characters.
No. I mean,
too
I'm
nice
sure.
a
I mean, after having hundreds of employees, I'm sure there's some people that would feel like we didn't always do the right things. But no, I think I'm still on great terms with all my founders and the team.
Usually, like when
No juicy stories there.
Dang.
Usually when we have a guest like this and they have a project like this, and I would pitch myself to do the audio book, but I'm not going to do that in this case because there's probably a lot of words in there I
That
can't
you
pronounce.
can't
There's
pronounce
not a
at
chance.
all.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
At all.
Not a chance.
All right, Max Bennett, thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk soon. We'll have you on the radio show, have you back on the podcast. You're a fascinating dude, man. You are just a great guy, and I wish you nothing but the best with this. And please don't end the world with your brain, okay?
I'll do my best. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderfully fun.
All right, talk to you soon, Max. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.